as a curiosity, I found out that, radio announcers, they had this big microphone in front of them. Guess what's in that microphone? What's the magic word for this weekend? Charcoal. Charcoal's in those microphones to take out dirty sound.
All right, well, do you want me to? I'll introduce myself to you first. So my name is Leanne, and I am not John's wife. I am a co-worker, co-laborer with
I'm old enough to be her grandfather.
Yeah. So, and then this is my son, Mason. John and I have worked together at some clinics, free clinics, health clinics that we've done, and it's just an honor, really, to serve the Lord in health. And like, we all, even just sitting here, have dealt with our own individual health trials, and we know everyone around us is dealing with them as well. So it's something that's just hugely needed for us to have knowledge added to our faith. And I've grown. I actually was not a raised Adventist either, and I'm a nurse, a registered nurse, and I've always been interested in preventative health care. And so when I found this church and that they really speak health, it meant a lot to me. And I've just seen God work in many ways. And so there's so many simple things. I think our God is amazing that He gives us 8 natural doctors. They're all free. Like, that healthcare is not expensive with God, okay? He's able to heal us from simple things. So, John, do you want me to show?
Go
something?
for it. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to demonstrate with Mason. Mason, will you come over here? And I'm going to need you to hold the microphone in a minute. But you can come in the middle.
There we go.
So let's tell them, Mason, what happened. Remember, we were just recently at a place called Red River Outpost. I don't know if anyone has heard of that in Kentucky. And they had a youth version of medical missionary training. So they were training kids to do what John is going to be teaching, what we're going to be showing you here this weekend. And so he learned a lot about how to do this. They practically did these things. But he ended up waking up in the middle of the night, didn't you, bud? He woke up in the middle of the night and he was screaming in pain. Oh, Mom, I have a sore throat. I have a sore throat. That's the worst thing, isn't it? And sometimes we're like, what do you do for a sore throat? I mean, is there even a good medicine for sore throats?
You suffer. Like,
really, yeah. So people just usually end up suffering with a sore throat. And he was in so much pain. And right away, God gave me the knowledge I needed. I said a little prayer. We're going to pray. God's going to help us. And we did what I'm going to demonstrate for you now. It's called a heating compress. And and I actually want to share just this quick quote from Ministry of Healing, the book that he's been quoting. And so it's on water. It says, it's from page 237 in Ministry of Healing. Many have never learned by experience the beneficial effects of the proper use of water, and they are afraid of it. Wow, right? Water treatments are not appreciated as they should be, and to apply them skillfully requires work that many are unwilling to perform. You'll see how quick this took. It did not take long. It may need to stay on for a while, or we may need to do it again, but it doesn't take too long, okay? So, but none should feel excused for ignorance or indifference on this subject. There are many ways in which water can be applied to relieve pain and check disease. All should become intelligent in its use in simple home treatments. Mothers especially should know how to care for their families in both health and sickness.
Amen.
So I praise God that He had given me this knowledge and wisdom. He's the God of wisdom. So all you need, this is what I carry in my bath bag, is just 2 random pieces of cloth, okay? A sock and another piece of cloth. So if it's going to be for the throat, you just need something large enough to wrap around the neck, at least once. And and then you have one that goes on the outside, okay? And all you're going to do is you run it through the water in the sink or whatever. It's cold water, not warm water. This is a heating compress, so the water that you're using on the first cloth is just going to be to get it wet, wring it out, and the body heats it up. Okay, so it's not hot like you're putting on a hot towel or something. It's just the body's way of heating it up. There's really no reason why you shouldn't be able to use this treatment. Everyone should be able to handle this treatment, and you can put it on. So you just kind of want to work quickly because they might have a fever and these types of things, so you're trying to go quickly so that they don't get cooled off. But you're going to end up getting that wrung out, and then have your dry cloth ready, and then a safety pin or two. Those are the only tools you'll need. Okay, Mason, can you come back over there and then hold this mic?
Do you want me to hold that for you?
Yeah, Mason will. Mason can
You got
hold
it?
You could. Come, Mason.
Come on up here, bud.
Center. Come in the center.
There we go. Okay. So you got a sore throat. You can't talk. It hurts it's scratchy and it's just irritating. And you're taking this wet cloth and you're going to put it around his neck. Okay?
Okay, and then the one thing that you just want to make sure is that does it feel comfortable to them? They can still breathe. They're not like cutting circulation out. They have to be able to just be, kind of loosely put there. I mean, you don't want it too loose, but you don't want it too tight. So just make sure it's snugly there and he can breathe. You can breathe, Mace?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes?
All right, so then you kind of want to work a little quickly just so that it's not too cool there. And what this second one that you want on the outside, you want it to be wider than your first cloth, okay? So that the air isn't getting to it, all right? So it'll just cover, so just making sure that there's no air getting to it and that it's fully on there, and then you can pin it shut and pin it in a good place where it's not like irritating to the person, and safely pin. And so we did this that night that he woke up right away, and he went right back to sleep immediately. What you would maybe want to ask, is it okay, Miss? All right. So you just want to ask him, can you breathe? Is it comfortable? And then maybe a little bit after, if he was up, I would have asked him, he fell right back asleep. You want to make sure that it is warming up. So that they're not becoming chilled because of it. If they are, then they maybe have some other problems going on where they're not able to warm their body up. Give them a hot foot bath, which will demonstrate, or something else to warm them up. But then he kept that on all night, and we prayed. That's the main thing. Water is an amazing therapy, but it's the God who gave us the water who's going to do the healing. And so we just prayed, Lord, please bless this compress. Please help his throat to be eased. Please take this sickness away. And we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. I laid hands on my son, and he woke up that next morning with no sore throat, and he actually had energy.
There we go. Is that let me ask you, is that laying on of hands?
Yes.
That's absolutely laying on of hands. Thank you, both of you. They're going to be helping with some other demonstrations as well. Generals or doctors, you medical people will have more lives to answer for in the other world than even we generals. That was Napoleon back in the 17 and 1800s. And he was sort of a contemporary, almost a contemporary with Ellen White, but he said that he had no drugs in his medicine bag. Well, I mentioned last night, what was it? Cleanliness was one of his main items in his medicine cabinet. Well, he didn't have a medicine cabinet, but he said drugs really don't do any good. So in the year 2002, I came across a little study. There was about 780,000 U.S. physicians. Preventable deaths in that year, PAEs, were anywhere from 250,000 to 750,000 people. Total war deaths in that same year were 170,000. So you could see that Napoleon wasn't that far off in recognizing a major cause of premature mortality. Here's a common weekly magazine, The Collier's, and it says, the Patent Medicine Trust, palatable poison for the poor. And that is the primary target for most of these drugs, is to pull people who are already disadvantaged into a system that they're likely never able to extract themselves from. Absorbing Junior, Anacin, Bayer, Aspirin, Bromo Seltzer, Carter's Little liver pill. I can remember my mother popping liver pills. And when you see people popping pills when you're small and you get a little bit older, has the scenario been set for popping maybe something else? If mommy can do it. Vicks, Vapor Rub, and so forth. 666, cold medicine. So here are some of the patent nostrums that were being prescribed in Ellen White's day. we have laudanum, we have strychnine, we have arsenic here. So in her day, arsenic was being used to control the desire for cold water. I hope you've never been plagued with a desire for cold water. Hopefully not back then. And pernicious anemia, but today in the 2000s, it's being prescribed for leukemia and certain cancers. So what was prescribed back then is still being used today. It's been rebranded and so forth and remarketed, but it's still out there on the highway. You remember that picture I had of the healthcare highway last night? Which way do you go? Opium, back in her day for cough syrup. Today it's been split off into a number of different chemicals that are highly addictive, including OxyContin. When I lived in Nova Scotia, there were old people's homes were being broken into by kids going in and stealing OxyContin. Calomel, thirst for cold drinks, a liver stimulant, parasites, and today it's an ingredient called thimerosal in vaccine. It's a preservative, and dental amalgams. There's a shift away from this, which is good, but nevertheless you can see that these potent medicines are still being applied today. Strychnine for insomnia. That would really help with insomnia. I can see that. Morning sickness, and today it's hyperglycemia, neurological research. And then there's enough people here that would recognize the word thalidomide. When we were lecturing in Australia, a woman came up to me and she was pretty handicapped. She was still functioning, and she maintained her level of health by taking charcoal daily. She had other issues that were sort of along with her multiple birth defects. So in 1960 it was again prescribed for insomnia and morning sickness, just like strychnine. And it never actually made it to the United States, but it was licensed. But the response was so fast, it was so dramatic that there was a backlash to it, and they took it off the market until, again in the 2000s, they rebranded it, and now it's being used for leprosy and other conditions. Death by medicine was a nationally funded study back in 2003, where they took other individual studies around the states, looking at different aspects of healthcare and seeing what the cost was to the public and also what the cost was in deaths. So drug reactions, 106,000. And then down the list, you have it all down to the last one, surgery-related deaths, for a total of $783,000. 783 deaths in a year. What is considered the number one cause of death? You never hear about these reported deaths, but they're built into coronary cancer deaths and so forth. But it was the treatment that finally precipitated their death, not the disease. That's like 6 jumbo jets falling out of the sky every single day of the year. Now, if one falls out of the sky, well, the first thing we think of is terrorism, right? The person who takes medicine must recover twice, once from the disease and once from the medicine. This is Osler, former physician-in-chief for Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, Maryland. Medical practice has neither philosophy nor common sense to recommend it. In sickness, the body is already loaded with impurities. By taking drug medicines, more impurities are added. Thereby, the cause is further embarrassed and harder to cure. Elmer Lee, former vice president for the Academy of Medicine. So these were people who could see on a regular basis cause and effect. And they too were looking in their day for options. Nothing has changed. We're up against a huge machine that plows through everything and advertises and promotes its wares, and it's hard to compete against it. Preventable adverse events, it used to be called iatrogenic death. It's now referred to as PAEs. 17% of all deaths are attributed to these PAEs. Physicians often refuse to report. How much do they refuse? Only about a very small fraction is reported. So if you actually add it up, it's even more inflated. with cardiologists being the highest of the non-reporting groups. 86% of PAs not reported. 86%. Wow. That's from the Office of Inspector General in the Journal of Patient Safety, 2015. So here you can see the gradual increase in reported cases. In the Institute of Medicine back in 1999, they had an article called "It is Air, to err is human." Well, that's fine, but not with my life or my grandchild. You know, I'm not into that. So yes, it is error. We are fallible. That's the absolute truth, and we need to recognize that. JMA 2000 reported almost 250,000. Inspector General, Department of Health, 2010, 180, just from their department, 180,000. 2013, Journal of Patient Safety, 440,000. Another one, British Medical Journal, in 2016, 250,000. So it may be going up and down, but nevertheless, what? It's inexcusable. It's way beyond what there should be experiencing. Are you aware that colds, flu, and most sore throats, where did I hear something about sore throats? Oh yeah, right. And bronchitis are caused by viruses. Did you know that antibiotics do not help fight viruses? Do you know that? Now come on, be honest. Is there some here that didn't know that? Maybe never thought about it? Well, they gave me an antibiotic, but just never thought about it? You know where I found this? On the CDC website for physicians. Plus, taking antibiotics when you have a virus may do more harm than good. Taking antibiotics when they are not needed increases the risk of getting an infection later that resists antibiotic treatment. Add to your faith what? Knowledge. Knowledge is power. But so is dynamite sitting on a shelf, right? It's power, but what are we going to do with that power? God's remedies are simple. A poultice of figs for King Hezekiah. Do you know that story? Where King Hezekiah got this death decree, and he was going to die. Put your house in order because it's over. And as the prophet was leaving, he got to the threshold, and he got a text from heaven saying, no, it's not over. Go back. He just prayed. So he went back. Death was pronounced upon the king, but he prayed for a life, and his prayer was heard. All prayers are heard. Do you believe that? Mm-hmm. They're heard. Those who have the care of him were told to get a bunch of figs and put them on the sore, and the king was restored. This means was taken by God to teach them. Who? The caregivers. To teach them that all their preparations were only depriving the king of power to rally and overcome the disease. While they pursued their course of treatment, his life could not be saved. The Lord diverted their minds from their wonderful mysteries to a simple remedy of nature. Then there's the bitter waters of Marah. Here the Hebrews are headed out into the wilderness, and they run out of water, and the first thing they start doing is complaining. And so God calculates their GPS, and he takes them off to a place, and Moses knew where they were headed. He knew those waters were not palatable. He'd been there before. I can just see him. Oh God, you know, and I know, and you know what they're going to do when we get there. And when they got there, what do they want to do? They want to stone them, right? Why have you led us out here just to die? We could have died back in Egypt with our bellies full of... And I like to think that there was a tree out there that had been in a fire and it got scorched by charcoal, whatever, probably not. But anyway, Moses took a tree and he threw it into the water, and it became palatable. Now, it could have, well, maybe it's not, but it could have been a moringa tree. It's common in a lot of places. But anyway, he followed instructions. God, come on, this is not going to work, but I'm going to do it. Okay, I'll do it. And he uprooted the tree and threw it in, and immediately the water was made sweet. The Samaritan. Now that Samaritan, today, what religion would that likely be if he was a Samaritan? I mean, he could be Christian, but there's a good chance he would be Muslim, right? So this Muslim comes along and he finds this Jew on the ground, and or put it in context, he finds this Christian who's been waylaid and brutalized, and this Muslim man picks him up and what does he pour in? Oil. Did it have to be cold pressed? Did it have to be virgin olive oil? It's what he had in his backpack is what he put in. That's all he had, and that's what he used. He didn't have to head back to some pharmacy to get something. God impressed him. He probably said a prayer, just like you did for Mason's throat. God, what do I use? Use what you've got. And he used the oil and the wine for the wounded traveler, and he went to him, poured upon his wounds, and he went the step further, and he put him up for the night. Thy faith hath made thee whole. If you have the faith as a grain of mustard seed, you shall say unto this mountain, remove to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you. John, where is your faith? You have no faith, John. You're so incredibly weak. How much faith? Well, you don't need much. You just need a bit. Plant it. If you plant it, it's going to do what? It's going to grow. Start. Okay? By trade, I'm a carpenter, plumber, building contractor. Now I'm a business person. But it started with seeds. It's like, okay, we'll do this. I remember my first heating compress. Can you use that heating compress someplace else? Your sore elbow? Carpal tunnel? Knee? Chest? The blessing of the Lord, it maketh rich, and he addeth no sorrow with it. No known adverse side effects. He anointed the eyes of the blind man with clay and said to him, go wash in the pool of Siloam. He went his way, and he came back seeing. So God's remedies, they have some valid scientific basis. They're simple. They're accessible and affordable any place in the world, to the wealthy and to the poor. You require a measure of faith, and it's free of adverse side effects. It's easy to use, and it's environmentally friendly. So you can see that God's remedies fall within certain parameters. They're not going to do you more harm. Go ahead and take a Hippocratic oath, even if you're not a healthcare professional. Say, God, I'm going to use your remedies that you make available to me. Drugs, on the other hand, have side effects, including death. Now, that's a major side effect. And they're addictive. And, of course, there's drug resistance that builds over time. We just read that. That was come from the CDC. That did not come from John Dinsley. It would have been better if from the first all drugs had been kept out of our sanitariums. This is talking about the Seventh-day Adventist Church. But little by little, the Seventh-day Adventist Church began to drink the wine of Babylon, and it has now progressed to the point where it has lost that simplicity of the message that I received when I came into this almost 50 years ago. It's little by little, it's been eclipsed by more and more drug taking. Because most people they want to fix how soon? I want it now or 5 minutes ago. I don't want to wait. I've got to keep on schedule here. Use have been made of such simple remedies as are found in pure water, pure air, sunlight, and some of the simple herbs growing in the field. Simple herbs. These would be just as efficacious as the drugs used under mysterious names and concocted by human science, and they would leave no injurious effects in the system. None. That is none, as in zero. If I could give this remedy some outlandish name that no one knew but myself, it would have greater influence. And we've seen that before, and so you'll see in some packaging of charcoal, it'll say Coco nuciferus or Carbo nuciferus, something, mysterious. Because if it's not mysterious, if I understand it, it's not going to work as powerfully as if I don't understand it. And so there's got to be mystery there, because if I understand it, it's not bigger than I am. It has to be bigger than I am to work. And so this proclivity that we have for mystery drives us to things that we can't even pronounce, let alone understand what those things mean. So this was to Dr. John Harvey Kellogg, and he was using fairly simple remedies, but little by little the first one he started with was aspirin, and then the hospital went down that road. And it makes me think of Jesus. He hath no form nor comeliness, and when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we shall desire him. Charcoal's the same way. Some interesting things about charcoal. Charcoal is actually mentioned in the Bible as a cleansing agent, and I'll come across that, maybe mention that later on today. But really, charcoal is so off the wall that some people they kind of roll their eyes. And if they've heard anything about charcoal, I know all about charcoal. I've heard people tell me over and over again, oh, I know all about charcoal. And I'm thinking, you haven't talked to my wife yet. And the things, well, we'll talk about that later. The doctor of the future, I mentioned this last night, the doctor of the future will no longer treat the human frame with drugs, but rather will cure and what? Prevent disease with nutrition. Was this a prophet? Was this man a prophet? Come on in, folks. We're glad that you came. Pull up a chair. Set a spell. Join us. We're glad you made it. We're just talking about some of the woes of drugs and some of the blessings of natural remedies. And we've gone through some pretty pointed statements up to this point. So here's Thomas Edison saying the light bulb went on for him. And in his day, he recognized, along with these other, these personalities all over the world who were recognizing that drugs were just not everything they were cracked up to be. So when I was in Africa, when we were working in Central Africa, here's a marketplace, and here's the doctor of the future. She's out there practicing medicine, probably without a license. But anyway, she's dispensing her medicines, fruits, vegetables, and so forth. And don't they look attractive? Yes, yes. Now here's another specialist. Tom Frieden is the former director of the CDC. In 2016, he reported the first case of total antibiotic resistance. Now these TARs, is it TARs? Anyway, we'll get into that. He said back then, it basically shows us that the end of the road isn't very far away for antibiotics. This man is a prophet. That we may be in a situation where we have patients in our intensive care units or patients getting urinary tract infections for which we do not have antibiotics. When was this written? Almost 10 years ago, almost. I've been there for TB. In India, they have this TB drug-resistant disease. It's its own disease. You have TB, but then you have the drug-resistant version, and it's resistant. Nothing works. I've cared for patients for whom there are no drugs left. When was this? 2016. This guy should be here. He should be seated in one of the pews. It is a feeling of such horror and helplessness. These men and women, why did they get into the profession? I doubt that all of them got in there because of money. I think that most of what was driving them was a sincere desire to do what? To help people. These people have a burden, and when you've helped somebody, the feeling of fulfillment is so profound that it just drives you to want to help somebody else. It's like its own drug, helping people. And you sense that frustration in him, and you sense that frustration with a lot of healthcare professionals. They're looking, and but when I've seen these kind of cases, I don't have a feeling of horror. My wife doesn't have a feeling of horror. She'll tell me, go get some hot water, get it going, and I'll make the poultice. And she'll tell me right away, and she'll say, come here. I've seen her take some of her employees and say, come up to the table here, sit down at the table, and she'll make a hot foot bath for them. When your headache is gone, you can come back to work. And that's the kind of faith I want. You know, my wife is, she doesn't have that formal background, but she has an enthusiastic, like you two are like peas, and she's very enthused and willing to try. She knows if it's not going to harm that person, she knows that having laid her hands on that stranger's feet is going to have healing in it. Just the idea that this stranger has stopped from her schedule to put her hands on me, and I'll show you some pictures when we were in Africa. People keep asking me, now this is from Dr. James Johnson, Professor of Infectious Disease Medicine at University of Minnesota. People keep asking me, how close are we to going off the cliff? 2017, this was reported in NPR. People, come on people, we are off the cliff. It's already happening. People are dying. It's right here, right now. Sure, it's going to get worse. We're already there. And we're going to see more of these, from a drip, drip, drip of cases to a steady drizzle to a rainstorm. It's scary, but it's good to get scared if that motivates us. Not to experiment with more drugs, but what? Add knowledge to your faith. And by now, you should have enough knowledge. You should have enough knowledge that you know that more chemistry is not the answer. Here is former director of WHO, Global Crisis in Antibiotics. She's been preaching this for years. Years. Evolving resistance among microbes responsible for common infections that threaten to turn them into untreatable diseases. A post-antibiotic era means, in effect, an end to modern medicine as we know it. Did you hear this on the news? When did you hear this on the news? It's not on the news. A post-antibiotic era means, in effect, an end to modern medicine as we know it. Things as common as a strep throat. Strep throat? Strep throat? Could that turn into a strep throat? Or a child's scratched knee could once again kill. For patients infected with some drug-resistant pathogens, mortality has been shown to increase by 50%. Now, I think she started reporting this 10 years ago. Okay, here's a case. Kevin Breen, 44, developed an extremely rare strep infection shortly after his son fought off a case of strep throat. He was contagious. The team worked around the clock, minute by minute, for the next several days, trying to keep him alive. Do you think they did that for the money at the end of the shift? Hardly. They wanted to see this man not just survive, but they wanted him to get well. Breen's severe case of septic shock, the toxins from the strep organism and medications he was on led to the need to amputate parts of his feet and hands, according to Dr. Elizabeth Steensma. It is extremely rare, she said. Now, she's an acute care surgeon. Now, she didn't make this up. She looked at the problem, she analyzed, she diagnosed the cause of death was what? Or the disease. And if he hadn't survived, what was going to be the cause? The application of toxins, toxic medicines, along with the toxins that were already in the microbes that they were secreting. The sky is falling. This has been going on for a long time.
So what we ended up building was basically a petri dish, except that it's 2 feet by 4 feet. And the way we set it up is that there are 9 bands, and at the base of each of these bands, we put a normal petri dish thick agar with different amounts of antibiotic. On the outside, there's no antibiotic. Just in from that, there's barely more than the E. coli can survive. Inside of that, there's 10 times as much, 100 times, and then finally the middle band has 1,000 times as much antibiotic. And then across the top of it, porous and thin agar that bacteria can move around in. The background is black because there's ink in it, and the bacteria appear as white. First, you see they spread in the area where there's no antibiotic, up until the point they can no longer survive. Then a mutant appears on the right. It's resistant to the antibiotic, it spreads until it starts to compete with other mutants around it. when these mutants hit the next boundary, they too have to pause and develop new mutations to make it into 10 times as much antibiotic. And then you see the different mutants repeat this at 100. And after about 11 days,
11
they
days.
finally make it into 1,000 times as much antibiotic as the wild type can survive. And so we can see by this process of accumulating successive mutations that bacteria, which are normally sensitive to an antibiotic, can evolve resistance to extremely high concentrations in a short period of time.
How many days? From 0 to what? 1,000%. Is that going on all the time? People are experimenting? That is, as a good doctor said, that's pretty terror. That's terror. What am I going to do? And they don't know about a heating compress for a throat. Not yet. But over the years, we've had hundreds and hundreds of healthcare professionals come to our programs, and they have employed some of these things, and it has got them thinking down another road. They can still practice medicine. They can still help diagnose. They can turn people to other options, and they can continue to meet people and their needs where they are. So we're talking about bacteria and antibiotics. Big question is, if you go to a community health clinic, you're going to see a poster or something like this on the wall with these big nasty bacteria. So I've asked the question, do bacteria have teeth? Nobody's going to raise their hand because nobody's quite sure. Nobody's quite sure, but they must have teeth because I've seen these monsters in the community health center. I'm not going to answer that one for you. COVID-19 has led to a new WHO director, Tedros, COVID-19 has led to an increased use of antibiotics, which ultimately will lead to, what is COVID?
It's a virus.
What? Has led to an increased use of antibiotics. Who's prescribing the antibiotics? Which ultimately will lead to higher bacterial resistance. What we just saw, they're actually doing it not in a laboratory, they're doing it out in the clinics. They're speeding that process up right before our eyes. That will impact the burden of disease and death during the pandemic and where? 2025. The trends reflect disturbing rates of increase in antimicrobial resistance, AMR. The UN Interagency Report, No Time to Wait, predicted that mortality from drug-resistant infections could increase more than tenfold, causing up to 10 million deaths a year by 2050, if there is no dramatic changes. And the if does not mean more drugs. The if does not mean more vaccinations, and that's where the drug industry is headed, because they've exhausted their chemistry. They don't know how to develop another antibiotic that can meet the market. So they're scrambling to find something. But behind the scenes, this is what they're telling each other. In Brazil, Indonesia, Russia, for example, about half of infections are caused by drug resistance. 50%. What do? People want something, and because they want something, you're going to give them something. And what are you going to give them? You're going to give them an antibiotic as the placebo, knowing it's not going to work and hoping it doesn't cause too much more problems.